All right. I love starting this in the middle of a sentence. This is Kat, the lead boss here on the Revenue Accelerator. And I have Rennie Gabriel here with us, who is going to, in my opinion, which is highly important, drop some serious value with us today. So Rennie, tell us who you are and why people should care.
Well, that's a good question. Gee, the last
Right
part,
off the
why
bat, let's go.
I wasn't expecting that question. I wasn't ready for it. Um, the who I am. I coach people on how to handle money powerfully so that they can become philanthropic.
Mm.
Um, and the reason for that is I know what it's like to be broke, and I know what it's like to give away tens of thousands of dollars to charity. And the feelings are on different ends of the spectrum. Um, when I say broke, I mean so broke. At one time, I had to collect soda bottles and cans to collect the refund money so I could buy food for my family.
Hold on. So what state were you in? Because that's like 3 states.
I was in a broke state. California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And
because it's like that in Michigan are the only places where you can actually return bottles. And I'm going to get like hate
oh,
mail with being like,
really?
our state does it too. Yeah. Well, at least it's not in my area, the DMV area. So
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah. So California, big on returning
that
bottles
whole
and cans
green
for refund
thing.
money.
Yeah.
And so by age 50, I'd had a couple divorces, I had a business failure, and I was
Mm,
flat broke. Um, but I used a concept that's 5,000 years old, turned myself around, found out what wealthy people do, copied them, and within about 8 years was a multimillionaire.
mm.
So at this point in life, I don't have to work for a living. So the only reason I'm working is to channel 100% of the profits from my work to charity.
Mm, that's amazing. So
So
I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, 8 years. So what do we do in these 8 years to be able to become not just a millionaire, but a multimillionaire? Because that's not something, that's not I guess, a label, right? That a lot of people get to put on their chest.
no, it's well, one, I worked 7 days a week for 7 years. That helped.
Okay.
And I focused on what I was doing. I mean,
Mm,
really focused on it. The the thing for me was I had taken a class at UCLA about 14 years earlier on how to buy or how to manage apartment buildings
mm,
effectively.
mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, so I know this. And then I had the opportunity with my wife and a realtor to be a 25% investor in a 3-unit property. And it took me 3 years to save up $18,000. And so I put it all into this property when I started over, when I was starting over. So I'm 53. Um, but that 18,000 created a $500,000 profit for the three of us.
Mm,
And my share was 125,000. And what I saw was this was working.
mm.
And I've discovered wealthy people have different attitudes than ordinary people. And like
Yes.
I said, I copied it. So one of them is you can use debt to create wealth.
Mm.
So I went out and borrowed more money so I could make down payments on more apartment buildings with my wife and the realtor. And we went from that 3-unit property to 50 units in the 8 years.
Now, what was the year time span here? Because that
Uh,
does play a part into it.
Started in, let's see if I was, let's see, 50, that was 2001
Okay.
was when we bought the 3-unit, and the market was going up. So we certainly benefited from that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the time span, let's see, 8. And by the way, I failed high school math, so I'm going to be slow with the
I
numbers here.
didn't, and I still can't do mental math. So you're in good company.
All right, great.
Like
So
time
let's
zone
see,
math is a
3 and
real
8.
problem for me.
Yeah. And yeah, no,
So
was it?
you survived the boom and the bust, right? So
Oh, absolutely.
you went through it and past it and then kept going. Like it wasn't the thing that
No,
killed
it
you.
was the most severe thing that happened in the 2008 bust was that we had a property, one apartment that was vacant for, it was either 3 weeks or 5 weeks. That
So
was the
one
extent.
one payment
Yeah.
was missed. Yeah.
Yeah. But out of 50 units, it didn't really matter.
Yeah. So, I
Um,
mean, you said something that was really interesting here in terms of, and I know it kind of goes contrary to what a lot of people talk about as it relates to debt, right? Of actually leveraging it as an asset versus looking at it as this huge liability. So, I mean, obviously, you have a philosophy around what people should do, as it relates to debt. Like, is that something like, should people be focused in terms of building their wealth? Should they be focused on paying down debt and then doing investments? Or like, what would be your advice there?
I'm glad you asked that question because that's my number one pet peeve.
Mm,
When you hear your CPA who is not wealthy tell you to pay off credit cards first, or you're listening to Susie Orman or Dave Ramsey, and that may be fine for some people because they're never going to have anything anyway, so it's okay.
right.
Paying off debt before saving or investing is absolutely the worst thing anyone can do if they want to create wealth,
Mm.
because we're talking about two different things. Oh, here's a we'll role play, Kat. Um, I'm going to ask you, if you wanted to build muscles, you wanted to have nice strong biceps. Tell me how you're changing your eating habits would do that.
Well, I
How would
had someone
dieting do
say,
that for you?
yeah, I mean, to build muscle, right, not necessarily to lose fat, maybe. I know that abs are made in the kitchen technically, but in order to actually build muscle, you need to lift stuff, right? Like you need to work
Exactly.
out.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I'm
I
getting
feel
at.
like I
So
got a gold star.
yeah, you did. You did. I'll write it down in my book right next to
Yay.
your name.
I need external validation like everybody else.
So the point is, dieting will not build muscles, and paying off debts is like dieting. And if you want
Mm,
to build the muscle of creating wealth, you have to start saving and investing.
mm.
You can't, if you ended up, okay, another quiz, another role play. Let's say,
This is fun.
good, 'cause second gold star, perhaps.
Yeah. All right. It's all on the line. Let's go.
Let's say that you had no debt, you had no credit card debt, no car payments, no mortgages, no loans to anybody else. You didn't owe the IRS any money. You had no debt. I'm not saying anything else,
Mhm.
but you had no debt. Would you be financially free?
No, because I would need wealth in order to be financially free. And so the lack of debt doesn't mean that I have an abundance of something else.
Exactly correct. If you don't have assets that are generating an income for you, just because you're debt free, you still have to work for a living. You
Mm-hmm.
still need to buy groceries or pay utility bills or pay transportation costs, which means you either work or you have assets generating the income for you. And the only way to do that is to save and invest.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what people are talking about a lot of times when they're talking about passive income. So, there's these bro marketers out there who are, pitching these laptop lifestyle experiences where there's all this money coming in, but it's not just doing nothing, right? There's actually something that's involved in order to set up these revenue streams. And there is at least somebody having to manage it, because if you're not managing the property, for example, then somebody needs to be, to make sure that tenants are paying their money on time. What is your thought about these laptop lifestyle bro marketing kind of projections that we see that are so prevalent in the online marketing space?
Um, I think it's Tim Ferriss who wrote the book, The 4 Hour Work Week,
Mm-hmm.
who works 50, 60, 70 hours a week. Okay.
Someone's
So
doing the work, people.
darn right. And the funniest part about it to me is the idea that he writes a book on the 4 hour work week, and he can't work 4 hours a week. He works 40, 50, 60 hours. So
Bro
any
marketing at its finest.
exactly. So, this lifestyle, laptop lifestyle, I'm sitting in the Bahamas and the money's coming into my account and all the rest of that stuff is great to sell other people on the concept.
Mm,
And that's where the money's coming from. It ain't coming from them sitting in the Bahamas doing nothing.
mm.
And I do have a very close friend of mine who's working in Puerto Rico, and he loves it there. And he's working just as hard as he ever did in the US.
No problem with that. No problem with people enjoying their life and taking time off. I mean, it's actually one of the things that you support people in trying to achieve, is to get to this place where they can reallocate their wealth, right? That wealth is this amazing, powerful thing. It's not bad, it's not greedy, it's not negative, but there's this huge amount of positive impact that you can have. So I know that basically with the concept of building wealth comes the other B, which is budget. So, how do those two things kind of correlate to each other? And what's your philosophy on, okay, so we got it. We need to have some debt. I get it. We need to pay it back at some point. But
Yes.
where does this budget concept actually come into play?
Well, before I even answer the thing about the budget, because it's another area zone for me, is when we're talking about wealth and the purpose.
Mm,
And one of the things I run into a lot is people have a fear of creating wealth, like it's going to corrupt them.
mm,
And the best expression I heard on that was from Warren Buffett. And he says, of the billionaires I have met, money just brings out the basic traits in them.
hmm.
If they were jerks before they had money, they were simply jerks with $1 billion. And the
Beautiful.
opposite is true. Someone who has good values, who wants to contribute, who wants to make an impact on the planet, who wants to be philanthropic, when they create wealth, they will be.
Well, and you see this in people who win the lottery, or let's say, athletes or something like that,
Yeah.
who make all this money, or somehow all this money lands into their laps, right? And then they still end up declaring bankruptcy because they didn't have that financial wherewithal beforehand to be able to manage all of that money and that abundance. So, that kind of ties into this budgeting concept. So
Yes, yes. And I will answer that. And one more comment.
absolutely.
When you're talking about all the money landing and people blowing it, whether they win the lottery or whatever, it
Hmm.
reminds me of an expression. I think I created it, and it's that more alcohol does not solve a problem for an alcoholic.
Exactly.
Yeah. So more money does not solve a problem of mismanagement either.
Well, and
And
so many people are focused on that of,
yeah,
if I only make this much more money, then I'll be happy, right? There's this very tied energetic and emotional thing between happiness and money,
yeah,
especially in America, like
yep.
very, very monetarily focused and driven.
I lived that for years. I
Mm.
thought if I just made more money, everything would work out, and I was mismanaging it. And when it comes to the budgeting, what I recognized, and I discovered this in a 12-step program called Debtors Anonymous.
Oh, there's one?
Yes, there's one for everything, I
I
think.
just like associations, right?
Yeah, you got it. There's an association for, everything from the doctors to the plumbers.
Mm,
The thing I learned is that you have to focus on expenses first. And
mm.
then when you get that under control, making more money is so much easier, because it's like the universe says, oh, we see you know how to handle money now. We'll give you more of it.
Such an opposite way that we were kind of brought up, right? In terms of just our socialization, in terms of it's a fear-based, anxious kind of, a relationship with money, of this lack of focus of, if I only have this much money. And I'll say, as a woman, most women equate security with the amount of savings that we have in the bank, which makes women who actually they are the ones who are more likely to invest as it relates to their business, but they're the ones that are kind of in control of the finances. So what is that about, and how do we course correct this to actually start focusing on the expensive versus that place of lack of, I only have this much money, or I have to pay off this debt kind of situation?
It's coming to the realization that that's the first step in the process of creating wealth. And I don't use the word budget because that brings up thoughts
All of
about
this.
deprivation and lack and sacrifice. Yeah, it's a negative connotation. So what I have our clients do is create a spending plan
Mm,
where we want them to spend money in alignment with their goals. We want them to spend money in alignment with their values. We want them to measure the level of pleasure they're getting based on where they're spending their money. They ask questions like, was this worth the purchase? Did I enjoy spending my money here? And unless
mm.
you ask questions and start to determine when your money is going somewhere, whether you got the value for it, it's difficult to make changes. So that's the first area. One, it's a spending plan, not a budget. And two, you ask questions as you spend money.
Mm. So what are some of the questions that we should be asking ourselves as we're spending
Well,
money?
one would be, if I didn't have to work for a living, would I buy this? A lot of people buy clothing for work or buy a car to impress other people or have an apartment for, to
Mm,
show off to other people or have a big house or whatever. And if they didn't have to work for a living, they might not buy that.
mm. It just, for me, I was thinking about the other day that I went to Target with my two daughters. I have three kids, two daughters.
So you left
And
one out. Okay,
yeah,
got
yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, we've got to have our favorites. So the son stayed home with his daddy and they had little male
I
bonding.
thought you said you had three girls.
No,
Okay.
yeah. So three kids,
Three
two of them are
kids, two.
girls, and
Yes.
then one's a boy.
No, I
And
know who you favor. Okay, go ahead.
right, right. All of them. I love them all equally. This is being recorded.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's right. Make sure you say that. So
Right,
when he
right.
hears it, he understands. Go ahead.
Exactly. So, we went to Target and there's like, that you pass this little aisle where there's like dollar things and $3 things. And I remember my daughters each, of course, picked out something because they plan this very strategically in terms of the store layout. And it was $3. And I remember growing up, that would have been an automatic no. I had five sisters. There was no way we were going to get anything beyond what the budget allowed for because there was a finite amount of money. I am not in that situation with my finances where I have to be as stringent. And I do look at those things and I see the joy that this little piece of nothing, plastic, $3 was going to charge us. And I wanted to do it because of the joy that it brought out in her. And so I really do appreciate this question of, if I had all the money in the world, would I still buy it? And being able to have that gut check, right? And that's what we're talking about here is that
Exactly.
instinct. And yeah, if I had all the money in the world, I would have bought that $3 thing. And I'm really glad that I did because it did, buy temporary happiness.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, your son probably would not have enjoyed the trip to Target because you may have been picking out girly clothes.
Right, right, right. So, it happens. I mean, he's got some hand-me-downs that are questionable. So, so with looking at this, I mean, you said the first focus area was on, creating the spending plan. The second one was asking yourself these financial questions, these kind of gut check questions.
Yes.
And I think there was a third one that you were kind of starting with, or am I totally off?
Oh, yeah, no, it's just that when you start there, then you can be increasing your income and it just flows more easily.
Mm,
And that's what I ended up learning is that when I focused on uh, the spending and where the money was going, my income jumped 50%.
mm,
Because up to that point in time, I was living beyond my income. And the more
mm.
I earned, the farther I was getting behind.
Yes. Well, and that's what we're seeing, right? With people who have like these financial
Yeah.
relationships, if you will, with money, these unhealthy relationships. So are these the things that you see people who, are exponentially wealthy? Are they still doing these same things
Oh,
once
absolutely.
they've achieved wealth that
Oh,
you were
yeah.
doing and growing
Because
it?
if they don't, they make big mistakes. And that was what happened to me. I figured I now have so much money, I don't have to pay attention anymore.
Mm,
And I started learning about the online business, and I'd buy this program and hire this coach and invest in, whatever else. And by the time I was done, and my assistant is telling me, Rennie, you spent far more money than you think. I said, no, maybe it's 125,000. She goes, no, Rennie, it wasn't anywhere near that. I had spent $400,000 on my education in the online space. And I was completely unconscious to it being that much money.
mm,
And so now I'm backtracking my money again because I use the example of John D. Rockefeller, who the creator of Standard Oil in the 1840s, 50s, whenever it was. When he was 11 years of age, he tracked every penny that came into his life and where he spent it. Now, granted, in 1850 or whatever, a penny was money, but the point is, this is a habit he kept even when he was a multi-billionaire, when he
mm.
was the wealthiest man in the world. He was still tracking where his money was coming from and where it was being spent.
Yep. I mean, there's definitely some value in knowing, where I know Dave Ramsey, but I remember him saying specifically every dollar has a name. So that philosophy of when you're looking at where everything is coming and going, of knowing where it belongs, where it's allocated to, and having a real pulse on, because it feels like
Yep.
its own human being, right? In terms of having it's a livelihood and being able to see the evolution of, this relationship that you have with money. Um, you
Now,
know,
question, hopefully you're not able to hear the power tools my gardener is using right by my window.
I heard a very teeny tiny little buzzy sound, but
Okay,
nothing
yeah,
that would be
that's
distracting.
he decides right now
Of
to be
course.
outside my window with power tools. Okay.
This is how it works. When we're speaking our truth, right? Sometimes things come in to block it.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the most important aspect of actually having wealth, other than just, these accumulation of things that we have in our life?
This may sound a little bit off track, but it's not. What I learned is wealth creation is a team sport, not a solo
Mm,
sport. People who attempt to create wealth by themselves don't end up as far as they could when they involve a team, whether it's partners, whether it's your accountant, whether it's a couple people founding a company together. Uh, that team aspect is so crucial. And remember, I said I was broke at 50 and I was a multi-millionaire about 8 years later. I did it with two other people, my wife and this realtor.
mm. I can't tell you how much I love that statement, because I had never thought about wealth being this team sport. We talk about growing your business as something that you want to have other people, involved in, and everybody has coaches. But really looking at that thread is really a commonality in any successful person. You
Yep.
tell me if you agree. There's this impact comparison of, let's say Bill Gates and his ability with his foundation to have an impact in the world. And then there's Mother Teresa. Now, a lot of people are always kind of putting Mother Teresa on a pedestal, and she was great and amazing. But ultimately, Bill Gates with his foundation, agree or disagree in terms of who he is as a person, his philosophies, or his involvement in anything, we're putting that to the side. What's your opinion? Who has the ability to have a bigger impact?
Uh, yes, putting all the things aside that you said about Bill Gates,
Yes.
he has the ability to make a bigger impact. Now, Mother Teresa did a fabulous job, but take into consideration, even though she had a vow of poverty, she raised millions of dollars to
Hmm.
support her charity work. The difference is Bill Gates had billions of dollars he created to put into his foundation to deal with health issues and education
Yeah.
issues around the world. So the numbers of people that Bill Gates impacted with his money is greater than what Mother Teresa was able to impact.
And that's just, guys, everybody listening, I don't want to get hate mail afterwards. This is
Yeah,
just looking
please.
at it from a black and white
Don't send
perspective.
Kate, oh gosh, can't even say cat. Don't send her hate mail. Cat
Of
and hate. It
But
doesn't
we
go.
have to use these examples to kind of say, push the envelope in terms of our own thought process as it relates to wealth. What is something that you think people need to push as it relates to their thought process related to the concept of building wealth and being able to have that bigger impact in the world?
It has to do with the purpose. I recognize the people that we work with have a purpose. They want to make an impact.
Mm,
We don't take on clients who want to buy their second Lamborghini or,
thank you. Thank you for being a good person.
they want a jet plane. I mean, and the sad part is one of my friends from high school is that kind of person. He would never be a client of mine,
Mm,
but I've known him since high school.
we forgive
Okay.
certain things, yes.
Yeah. So the people that we work with care about the planet, care about other people, want to make an impact. And so our tagline is we raise philanthropists.
Mm.
So the point is we support people to handle money powerfully so that they can become philanthropic because that's what they want to do. And that's the reason for their wealth. They've got a purpose.
Beautiful. Rennie, you've dropped some seriously amazing nuggets. And one of the things that I love the most is when someone can come on and actually change the way people think. So how can people get in touch with you and learn more about kind of how you support people in not only building wealth, but being able to build that philanthropic impact?
Um, I would say listen to my TEDx talk. And the way to do that is they can go to my website and they'll get a roadmap to what I call complete financial choice. I don't talk about financial freedom. I talk about complete financial choice. Choose to work, choose not to work, choose whatever.
Mm.
They go to wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx.
Awesome. Guys, that will definitely be in the show notes. So wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx. Rennie, any parting words or, things that you wish you'd known when you were younger?
That it's okay to ask for help.
Mm.
I
Ah.
didn't learn that till I was in my 40s because I was a latchkey kid. Thought everything had to do with me taking care of it.
We
So
always get into mommy and daddy issues some way, somehow.
yeah, but hey, love my parents. They loved me. They just weren't there.
Yeah. Right. So awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it, guys. Make sure you check out wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx and check out the show notes. And Rennie, again, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Kat. My honor.